What's up, everybody? Hey, aren't you guys thrilled to be a part of a church that's doing that? I'm so excited about what we're trying to do as a church and plant 30 churches. It's just so fun to be a part of a church that wants to live beyond itself. Hey, my name is Mike, in case you've never met before, and I get to be on the teaching team. And man, I love being a part of this church. So thanks for coming out this weekend to worship and to be a part of this. Hey, real quick before I get rolling here, anybody movie buffs here? Anybody love movies? Real quick, just turn to someone close to you and give them, like in 30 seconds, your top 3 movies of all time. Ready? Go. Top 3. All right, so let me give you, although you didn't ask me, I'm going to give you my top 5. And I'm sure most of these didn't make it on your list whatsoever. And I got to preface this by saying I had a hard time keeping Dumb and Dumber and Tommy Boy off this list, as well as Tombstone and Braveheart. All of them almost made the cut. But number 5 for me, it was part of this what used to be the trilogy. Talking about Toy Story. Toy Story 3 was one of my favorite movies. Number 5, checking in, Toy Story. That's the one with Lotso the bear and welcome to Sunnyside, folks. I just love Toy Story 3. It's a tearjerker. Number 4 for me is a movie with Tommy Lee Jones and Harrison Ford. It's an old movie called The Fugitive. I just love that movie. Every time it's on, I got to watch a little bit of it. I know exactly how it's going to end, but I love watching The Fugitive. Number 3 for me, quirky movie. I know it didn't make your list. Quirky, stupid movie, but I love The Princess Bride. That's just a fun movie for me. I love The Princess Bride. It's just dumb movie. You got the little bald guy going, inconceivable. You got Andre the Giant who talks in rhymes. You got the Inigo Montoya, you don't kill my father, you prepare to die. You got that guy. I love Princess Bride. Number 2 for me, probably nobody thought of this one, but it's one of my favorite movies of all time. It's a movie with Bill Murray and Richard Dreyfuss called What About Bob? It's about this neurotic guy who drives a psychiatrist crazy. It is such a classic movie. And in our family, my dad was diagnosed paranoid schizophrenia. And so we spent a lot of time in mental institutions and stuff, just trying to find help. And sometimes you just have to find humor in it. And there's a scene in this movie where Bill Murray, Bob, is in a mental institution. He's cracking up all the doctors. They think he's the funniest guy they've ever met. And he says, hey, roses are red, violets are blue. I'm schizophrenic, and so am I. That's just a great line right there. It's a great line. But my favorite movie of all time, number 1 for me, I learned 3 things from this movie. And when I walked out this movie, I thought that's the most profound, best photograph, great soundtrack. I don't even know what it was about, but it was just phenomenal film, great acting. And I learned 3 profound things. The first thing I learned in this movie was life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. I learned that stupid is as stupid does. It has nothing to do with your IQ, but everything to do with your promise-keeping ability. And the third thing I learned was so freeing for like a pastor, preacher, communicator guy. I learned that I didn't have to work so hard on the conclusion to my talks. When I got done, I could just say, that's all I have to say about that. just be done. It's like, they're brilliant. Forrest Gump was it's my favorite movie of all time. It's just about this simple guy that just tried to keep his promises. It's just an amazing film. But there's a scene at the end of this movie where he's standing at the grave of his wife, Jenny, who lost her life at a young age because she made some bad decisions in her life. And he's standing there looking at a tombstone, and he poses this question. He says, I don't know if it was Lieutenant Dan or Mama who was right. Do we just kind of show up accidental-like and float around accidental-like a feather on a breeze? Or do we have a destiny? And when I heard him ask that question, I thought, that's the question that everybody, whoever walks this planet, has to come to grips with. Do we just show up kind of accidental-like and float around accidental like a feather on a breeze? Or do we have a destiny? I mean, is there a purpose for us being here? Now, in the world of, let's just call it TikTok theology, there's the whole you do you, speak your truth, just follow your heart. kind of like float around like a feather on a breeze. Or let's just put it in one word, the word that really spoke to me when I was living a different life. The word was whatever. I was such a whatever kind of guy. When I was growing up, I went to church, but I didn't know anything about God. I just went to church. Where I grew up, that's what you did. It was kind of spoke on the wheel of your life. You did church, you did sports, you did school, you did friends. I didn't know that God wanted to be the hub of my life and that everything in my life could revolve around my love relationship with him. I didn't know that. I just kind of lived a whatever kind of life. I had one foot in the light, one foot in the darkness, and I could be whoever I need to be with whatever group I was running with, man. If I was with these guys, I could just fake them out. If it was these guys, I could fake them out. And I'm going to tell you guys something. It's hard enough living one life. Living two is nearly impossible because you can't figure out which lie you told with which group and how you acted with which group, and it's just hard being phony. It just is. You got to cover your tracks all the time. And so as a teenager, it was just kind of starting to come unglued for me a little bit. Like I didn't like that. I didn't like being two different people. And I met this girl. Oh, man, she was so cute. And she had something that I mean, she just had one life. She authentically loved God. She authentically loved people. She just had both feet in the light, and she was just trying to make a difference with her life. And I thought, I actually prayed, God, that's what I want in my life. And if I could get her too, that would be awesome. Like package deal, that would be sweet. So I started pursuing this girl. Her name was Debbie. I started pursuing this girl with everything I had, and started showing up at church more because she was at church a lot. And so our church youth group is going to go on this summer retreat up to northern Minnesota, just kind of get away for a week and stuff. And they asked me if I wanted to go. I said, what do you do on that? And they said, well, we just kind of hang out and talk about God and stuff and play some ball, things like that. And I said, is that Debbie girl going? They said, yep. I said, sign me up, man. Sign me up. I'm going too. So I went that whole week long, man. I pursued that Debbie girl. What I didn't realize is that whole week long, God was pursuing me. Actually been pursuing me my whole life. I just slowed down enough that week to realize. And I can remember like it was yesterday. Everybody, it was one night of a retreat. Everybody had gone back to their cabins. I was sitting around a campfire all by myself on the banks of a lake in northern Minnesota. It's really starry sky. And I just put my hands up. I'd never done that in my life. I mean, the church I grew up in, if you did that, they go, you got a question? Why you got your hand up? We didn't do that in worship and stuff. But I just put both hands up in the air as if to say, God, I give up. I surrender to you. I don't want to live with one foot in the light, one foot in the darkness anymore. I'm just, wherever you want to take me, God, I'm signing up tonight. That was the night you might say I moved from whatever to wherever. And I never dreamed that God would do the things he's done in my life, and he would lead me on adventures that I've gotten to do in my life ever since that night as a 17-year-old guy, surrendering my life to Jesus Christ. And I started reading the Bible more, and verses like Jeremiah 29:11 began to resonate in me, where God said, for I know the plans I have for you, plans to give you a future and a hope. And when I read things like that, I thought, that doesn't sound like a whatever kind of life to me. It doesn't sound like we show up accidental like and float around like a feather on a breeze. And I would read like Ephesians 1:4. For long before he even laid down the earth's foundations, he had us in mind. It settled on us as the focus of his love. And I read that doesn't sound like a whatever kind of life to me. It sounds like we were the focus of his love. We're the focus of his plans. And like Philippians 1:6 began to resonate with me. So for I'm confident of this, that God who began the good work in you will keep on doing it until the day that Jesus Christ comes back. And that didn't sound like a whatever kind of existence to me. It sounded like God wanted to move into my life and start to do stuff on the inside of me. And catch this, it would live on not until just like I died. It would live on until Jesus Christ came back. That God would keep using my life after I was dead and gone. And I read like Ephesians 2:10, where it says, "For we are God's what? masterpiece. He created us anew in Christ Jesus so that we could do the good things he planned for us long ago. And that didn't sound like a show-up, accidental, like a feather, float around on like a feather on a breeze to me. It sounded like God had a plan for my life, that he wanted to create this masterpiece of me and just hang me in the world so that everybody could see what he could do through people like me. And I learned I'm only here for a while. So I just prayed as a 17-year-old, God just used my life to make a difference. And I had no idea where God would lead me. And it hadn't been easy, but man, it has been an absolute blast of walking by faith and walking with him and just seeing what God does in unexpected ways. I mean, I never dreamed I'd be standing in a place like this talking to you. My friends are still shocked that I'm doing stuff like this with my life. But I hope it's a testimony of what God's grace can do in a person's life and anybody's life. I heard a survey they did of 95-year-olds. They asked them this question: if you had it to do all over again, what would you do differently? They responded in 4 ways. First response was, what was the question? And once they got it, they responded in these 3 ways. If we could do life all over again, we would reflect more, we would risk more, and we would do something with our life that would live long after we're dead and gone. They said we would reflect more, we'd slow down, we'd take in more sunsets, we'd take in more moments, we would soak in more moments. We would risk more. We would take chances in life. We would see life like it's this adventure in which you cannot pick the fruit unless you're way out on a limb somewhere. We would walk by faith, and we would do something with our life that would live on long after we're dead and gone. I thought to myself, man, I don't want to wait till I'm 95 to say those things. Do you? Man, I want to reflect now. I want to risk now. I want to walk by faith now. I want to do something right now with my life that's going to live on long after I'm dead and gone. I like to think of it this way. Some of y'all, you've heard me talk about this before. I know how some of y'all get in the pool. Now, be honest, you're a toe dipper, right? You walk up to a swimming pool, you stick your toe in and go, whoo, that is cold, right? And then it's like your foot. Oh, that's cold. Your ankles, woo, cold. Calves, woo. Knees, woo. Thighs, woo. Woo, all the way in. You're getting in this pool. Man, that's no way to get in the pool. How do you get in the pool? Yeah, you take a running start and you tuck up your knees and you do a cannonball and you hit the water and the water goes flying. The ripples go out and hit the side and they come back in. They go back out and they come back in. They go back out and they come back in. If you're really big, they go back out and they come back in and they go back out. If the sides of the pool weren't there, the ripples would just keep going and going and going and going long after you made your splash. And I think that's what God calls us to do. He says, man, you're only here for a little while. Just take a leap of faith. Make a little splash and let the ripples touch a life. Who will touch a life? Who will touch a life? Who will touch a life? And long after you're dead and gone, the ripples will still be being felt. I think that's what God calls us to do. Like I said, I never dreamed I'd be doing this with my life. Never dreamed I would be a part of planting a church like we're trying to do with the 30 church plants that we're going after. Back in the early 90s, I had a chance with my family to move to Las Vegas and plant a new church. And it was so fun. It was one of the highlights of my life. And I still have a real soft place for Vegas in my heart. Love the people there, love the place there. And God did some cool stuff there. And I don't know whether I rippled on a lot of people, but I do know I rippled on one guy. His name was Jeff. And we started our church in the Las Vegas YMCA. When you plant a church, you just got to find a spot. And it was a cool spot. I mean, we used racquetball courts for kids' classrooms. Can you imagine teaching little kids on a racquetball court? It was sit down, 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 down. It was just nuts. I mean, it was really nuts. They were literally bouncing off the walls. And we had an Olympic-sized baptistry pool. It was really cool. But we met in a gym, and I had this like a mural of an aerobic woman doing some kind of stretch behind me when I preached. And it was just a fun place to launch this church. And I played ball there during the week, played basketball. And this guy comes up to me one day and goes, we're in between games. He goes, hey, man, can I talk to you for a minute? I go, sure. He goes, you like preach here, right? I said, yeah, on weekends when we're not playing ball, yeah. He goes, yeah, I've been coming to your church on the other side of this curtain. And I've been sitting in the back and just listening to stuff. And I saw you here playing ball. I'm going to talk to that guy someday. Because I need to talk to somebody, man. I feel like feel like I'm living two lives. You ever felt that? Well, yeah, absolutely, man. I did it for a long time. He goes, it's exhausting, isn't it? I said, yes, it's exhausting. He goes, man, I'm lying to my wife. I'm a very successful guy. I make a lot of money. I've got a thriving business right now. He goes, I'm a smart guy. I have a degree in physics. I was a small college All-American quarterback. I was one of those guys, but man, I got a gambling addiction, and I can't stop. I don't know, maybe it's my competitive nature. I don't know what it is, but he goes, man, you're going to think I'm crazy. But the other night, I was at a casino, and I'm playing slot machines. I ran out of money, so I ran out to my car, and I'm searching the seat cushions with my car to try to find some cash to go back in and play some more. So I just kind of lost control. I'm losing money. I'm lying to my wife. I'm moving money around in accounts. And then I come to your church over there in that gym, and I wonder, can God help me? I said, absolutely, man. He loves guys like us, guys that used to live two lives trying to fake everybody out. And he loves guys like us, and he wants to get us on the right track. And so make a long story short, I got to spend some time with him and became really good friends. And at 35 years old, he did what I did when I was 17. Said, okay, God, I'm putting both feet in the light. I want to surrender my life to Jesus Christ. I want to walk with you. And God turned this guy into one of the most dynamic, coolest Christian guys you'll ever meet in your life. And so I'm still in Vegas at this new church plant. And I get a phone call one night from a lady in St. Louis, Missouri. I don't know how she got my number to this day. She called me up and said, hey, you have a church in Vegas, right? I said, yes, ma'am. She goes, well, our son is 21 years old. He has a drinking problem and a gambling problem, and we think he's heading to Vegas. Could you keep an eye out for him? Okay, yeah, well, 36 million people come to Vegas every year. Yeah, we'll keep an eye out for him. I'm thinking, oh, sure we will. Okay, hung up and thought, we'll keep an eye out for him, you know. She calls back about an hour later. She goes, hey, our son is in Vegas. Some hotel manager found him passed out in the parking lot, put him up for the night. Here's the address of the hotel. Could you guys do something? I went, yes, ma'am, we will. Hung up the phone, but what are we going to do? I called up Jeff. Go, hey, Jeff, I got a guy for you, man. Big old dude, 21 years old, football player like you used to be, gambling problem like you used to have, and he's got a drinking problem too. I said, man, could you go do something? He goes, I'm on it, man. Jeff goes down the next morning, it's a Sunday morning, 5:30 in the morning to this little sleazy hotel behind the strip. Knocks on the door, Gary's door, bangs on the door. Gary gets up 5:30. He's a huge dude. He's got vomit all over his shirt. He's hungover. Opens the door up and goes, yeah? Jeff goes, hey, my name is Jeff. Sorry I'm here so early from Canyon Ridge Church, and we're a poor little church. We're meeting in a high school now, and everything it takes to do church comes off the back of a Ryder truck, and man, you're big. You could help. And Gary goes, excuse me? He goes, yeah, man, your mom called. We know all about what's going on. I used to have a gambling problem, too, and I know you got one of that going on, man. There's a lot of help. A lot of people are finding help at our church. Come on, man. Why don't you take a shower and come to church with me? And Gary goes, okay. Takes a shower, gets in a car with a complete stranger in Vegas, drives out to our church building. We're meeting in a high school now, stands in the back of a Ryder truck, handing out chairs to guys he never met in his life, goes inside the room, sets up those chairs, sits in one of those chairs, and that day did what I did when I was 17, when Jeff was 35. As a 21-year-old guy, I said, I want to give my life to Jesus Christ. And when we left Vegas, Gary had rippled on a guy named Darnell. Darnell rippled on a guy named Chris, and I saw Gary about 3 years ago. He's coaching high school football. See, that's just what God does. One life touches a life. Who touches a life? Who touches a life? Who touches a life? When I left Las Vegas, went back to Central Kentucky where I grew up, and I wasn't planting the church, but I felt like I was planting the church inside of a church. It was a call to be a change agent, and it was really cool what God did there. And Rusty could tell you, we were at the same place. And so many people from all kinds of different walks of life, just like in Vegas, were coming to find hope. And this one guy pulls me aside one day. His name was Harold. Harold recently passed away, just a great dude. He wouldn't mind me telling you this either. He's the biggest redneck I ever met in my life. Just the countryest old guy you've ever seen. He came up to me one week and said, hey, my name's Harold. I want to tell you something about me. I heard you out there in Las Vegas, all that stuff out there in Sin City, but you ain't never met nobody who's been in as much darkness as I have. And he told me a story. He was right. Oh, my goodness, this guy had done everything. So make a long story short, Harold surrendered his life to Christ. He was 52 years old. And I had Harold and his whole small group come on stage one weekend. Had them sitting on stools. And this was not planned at all. They're just sitting on stools. I'm just interviewing the group. And so I start with Harold. So Harold tells your story a little bit. And he tells a little bit of story. He said, I want to know, how this new life start for you? He goes, oh, Stephen down there. He points to the guy at the end of the stools. He goes, Stephen down there, we were fishing buddies. He told me one time, he said, Harold, your life is so screwed up, man. You need to come to church. I got a good church for you. You need to come to this church. And so I came to this church, and I found Jesus Christ, and he turned my life around. And I said, that's so cool. I said, Luke, what about, he sitting next to Harold. I said, Luke, what about you? He goes, Harold. I go, really? He goes, yeah, we used to do lines of cocaine together. Now we do lines of scripture together. Ain't that cool? I go, that's cool, man. That is really cool. I says, Tim, what about you? He goes, Luke. I mean, all the way down, there was just one guy's life, touched a guy's life, who touched the guy's life, who touched the guy's life, the way ripples work. I remember Harold standing up. I had him stand up. Oh, I can't believe I'm telling this. I had him stand up at an elders meeting. We had a group of guys that kind of oversaw the church. Some of them were pretty buttoned up kind of guys. I asked Harold to share a story. Harold comes in, he goes, hey guys, my name's Harold. So I used to be one smelly, filthy trash can of a man. Now I'm a bright, clean, shiny trash can of a man. He said, I'm so on fire for God, I got a flame shooting out my butt that far. And I had to pull him aside, coach him a little bit on giving his testimony, but that's the way it was, man. And when he passed away, he was an associate pastor at a church down in a little place called Hazel Green, Kentucky. No telling how many people's lives that this guy rippled on. When I think about ripples, I think about Nanny. She was our 103-year-old grandma. She was healthy almost until the day she died, 103. She's the first person I ever heard say, when you get to be 100, don't buy green bananas. Well, that's great advice. Well, think about it. That's great advice right there. Just get them right, man. You don't know. It's just great advice. She was so funny. But when you had her 100th birthday party, all these people came to her birthday party. You need to know this about Nanny. She never graduated from college, never had a driver's license, never was in the paper or anything like that except for the time when she turned 100. Was a widow for like 47 of those years. She raised 6 girls in a one-bathroom house. That's heroic right there, let me tell you. 2 bedrooms, that was it, 2 bedrooms. And she just poured her life and her love and her faith into those 6 girls. And you know what those 6 girls did? They poured their love and their life and their faith into their 4 or 5 kids. You know what their 4 or 5 kids have done? They poured their life and their love and their faith in their 3 or 4 kids. And I stood there at her 100th birthday party. I watched all these people, I mean lots and lots of people, come to wish this little wrinkled woman sitting in the corner a happy birthday, and most of them had never met her. So that's the way ripples work. And I'm standing there watching this whole thing unfold, and I get emotional because one of those 6 girls was a girl named Molly who had a really cute daughter named Debbie who changed my life. Debbie and I have a daughter named Jody. Many of you know Jody. She spoke here at the revival a few weeks back. Jody got off track in high school. When we moved from Vegas back to Kentucky, she made some poor choices with friendships and started taking her down some dark roads. And make a long story short, she surrendered her life when she was 17 like I did. She got tired of living 2 lives too. And one of the first things Jody did was go to a summer camp, like I did. I hadn't made that connection until right now. She goes to a summer camp. At this summer camp is this tall, young, skinny guy named Rusty speaking. And he's still tall, by the way. And Rusty George was preaching that night at this little camp, and that's when she surrendered her life to Christ. She left there and went for a year to work in a mission in Haiti, a medical mission working with orphans. Life-changing for her. Came back, met an intern that was working at our church named Mike Hickerson. They fell in love and they got married. They did student ministry for a long time. Then they began to feel called to plant a church. And they prayed about it. Every Tuesday, a team of them, 6 of them, TD and Jen Oakes and Jim and Donnell Sheldon, and those two would pray every Tuesday. They'd fast and pray every Tuesday. They said, God, just give us a location. And they thought they were going to plant this church in Asheville, North Carolina. And TD, one of the guys on the team, was real good friends with Rusty, and he called Rusty and said, hey, we're thinking about planting a church. What do you think about Asheville? And Rusty goes, don't go there. Come to Ventura. Man, we want to plant a church there. You guys would be perfect for that church, for a church plant in Ventura. So they came out and looked, and they knew this is what we're supposed to do. So they planted a little church called Mission Church in Ventura, California, which is touching so many people's lives. Well, TD and Jen, one of the couples that came with them, TD was a worship leader, and Jim was on the team too, and they rented a little place down by the beach in Ventura, and they would go to this little place called the Yogurt Hut down by the beach, and they loved it, and they felt impressed to pray for whoever owned that little yogurt shop. So they started praying anonymously for the owners of the Yogurt Hut and began to pray for them. Well, one day before they launched Mission Church, they were having an informational meeting here at Real Life. And after the service was over, anybody interested in helping out the new church plant in Ventura could come to the informational meeting. Well, one of the girls that came to the info meeting was a girl named Deanna. Deanna said, I'm so excited that you guys are going to plant a church in Ventura. My boyfriend's family lives in Ventura. They own a little yogurt shop down by the beach. And TD and Jen are just like blown away. They said, well, give us her name. So Jen started going down and meeting the owner and began to walk with the owner every day. And they became really, really close friends, and they surrendered their life to Christ. And Deanna, the girl that told them, she had just come out of the porn industry, was a pretty well-known porn star, all kinds of addictions, really, really hard life. She was feeling so empty. So I remember the day I brought my wife here to Real Life, and Deanna was waiting for her on her bench outside Real Life. And they met for, 4 or 5 hours. And Deanna decided to move to Kentucky and go through a thing called the Refuge for Women, which we had been a part of. And she did that and lived with us for 3 years, actually, upstairs above our garage. Meanwhile, her former boyfriend now, who was living in Ventura, also gave his life to Christ at Mission Church, was baptized there. Tragically, he had a relapse and accidentally overdosed one night and passed away. His funeral was held at this new church that was meeting in an old theater in Ventura, and tons of people came. Many from NA, many from the sex industry, entertainment industry. One of those in attendance at that funeral was a girl named Alia. And so she was so touched by the funeral service and just the spirit of the people of Mission Church. She keeps coming back just looking for hope in her own life. And she hears Deanna's story and says, I want that freedom too. So let me just let her tell you her story.
Most of my life I'd felt shame, like there was something wrong with me, who I was as a person, and that at any minute people were going to find out that I just didn't belong. My childhood was chaotic. My parents had a lot going on. My dad was in and out, always into drugs, and kind of lived a rock and roll style lifestyle. And my mom always had her own life going on, and I felt abandoned, felt like I was disposable. I was sexually abused and introduced to pornography when I was 4, and that led me to believe that I didn't have control over my body, that I wasn't allowed to have a say in what happened to me physically. As I got older, I didn't value myself. I'd kind of felt like I'd been stripped of my value, or that I hadn't been born with any. I believed these ideas that when I could find value, it came from a desirability, and that love was shown through sexual touch. So I spent the next 15 years of my life trying to create this sense of value in myself that I really believed could only be accomplished through being wanted and being desired sexually. And it led me into working in the sex industry and working in prostitution and porn, and just robbed me of any sense of value that I had left, that just put this despair in my heart that led me to the answer seeming like ending my life was the best thing for me. I'd been told about this place for 4 or 5 years from my family at Mission, and I just decided, like, okay, God, I'm ready to try things your way, and I'm ready to listen. And I had come to this fork in the road where I had decided that either I was going to do things this way and try God's way and try getting help, or I was just going to kill myself and just be done. And at that point, I just kind of decided, like, I couldn't live this way anymore, and I needed something more. So after 20 years of feeling like I was never enough, feeling like I was a secondary character in my own life, I was given the gift of being able to go and live amongst these women that for the next year just loved me. And my beliefs were just counteracted. Everything that I had told myself and that I had put myself in situations to where other people could tell me those same lies was being proven to not be true by the way that these women were caring for me. And as I came to believe that God was who he says he was, that with that came the acceptance that if this is true, then I must be who God says that I am. And with that came the understanding that God calls me beloved. Like, he calls me redeemed. He calls me pure despite anything that was done to me or that I've done to myself, that I could have this new start and this new relationship where I could find my identity in who he said I was, and that this time my he could be Christ. And he called me new, and he told me that my sins were washed white as snow, and that the old was gone and that the new was here. And as far as the east is from the west, he'd forgotten everything that I had done. So growing up, I shared this love of horses with my mom, and we didn't share a whole lot. It was like this part of my childhood that hadn't been tainted by the abuse that I'd gone through. And what amazes me is how personal God has been in my journey of healing, and he's put me in this position where I work in a ministry that uses horses, and every day I get to come out here and I get to spend time with them, and I'm able to continue having that safe place, and I'm able to give that experience to other people and help them, feel those same feelings of honesty and purity with the interactions that they're able to have with these horses. That has just been such a gift and is continuing to help me as I move on in healing and I move on in just trying to live this life as a much loved child of God. As for you, you were dead in your transgressions and sins, in which you used to live when you followed the ways of this world and of the ruler of the kingdom of the air. All of us also lived among them at one time, gratifying the cravings of our flesh and following its desires and thoughts. Like the rest, we were by nature deserving of wrath. But because of his great love for us, God, who is rich in mercy, made us alive with Christ even when we were dead in transgressions. It is by grace you have been saved.
Alia now works for a nonprofit helping girls who are coming out of trafficking situations. Graduated from Moody College with a 4.0, thriving as a mom. You see, a life just touches a life. Who touches a life? Who touches a life? Who touches a life? I just want to publicly thank you for planting Mission Church. What do you say we generously do all we can to do 30 more of those? Because, man, it's a blast to live this way. Jesus told us one time, it's recorded in Mark 8:35, only those who are willing to throw away their lives for my sake will ever know what it means to really live. I mean, don't you want to really live? I mean, you can float around accidentally like a feather on a breeze if you want to. Or you could choose to put your life in the hands of the destiny maker. And you could make some ripples with your life. That's all I have to say about that. Let's pray. Father, so grateful for what you've done in so many people's lives. Thank you for the simplicity of just using one life to touch a life. God, you don't ask us to do great and grandiose things. You just ask us to simply just love people. Take a chance on people. Just to jump in faith and let our lives just touch somebody's life. Who will touch somebody's life? Who will touch somebody's life? And long after we're dead and gone, the ripples are still going. So God, thank you for what you're calling us to do as a church. Thank you for the ripples that will be felt for eternity because of what we're trying to do. I pray that you would bless this effort. I pray that you would stir our hearts of generosity. I pray that 30 churches would spring up all over and real hope would be brought to California and way beyond, touching people we may never meet on this side of heaven. And God, I pray you would do that through all of us. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.